Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to talk with Danny Combs, the founder of TACT, and the amazing trade skill opportunities for autistic individuals that they provide. But first, a word from our sponsors, Anchor and Dynamic Lynks.
At Dynamic Lynks, we are passionate about serving neurodiverse individuals in an inclusive and affirming way. And we want to help you do the same with the launch of our Dynamic Community. Our Dynamic Community is a monthly subscription program where you get easy-to-use session plans with 5 original songs and activities delivered directly to your inbox every month. On top of all those goodies in the session plan, you also get 1 hour of group supervision each month and a 15-minute mini lecture on a teaching topic to support your neurodiverse clients. The theme for each month is based around that topic, full of original songs, music and movement activities, visual supports, and more.
Ready to join? Visit dynamiclinks.com/community to sign up today.
Hello, I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to talk about our sponsor, Anchor, hopefully at a louder volume this week. First of all, it's free and it has creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. I found it really easy to move the segments around in the editing process, and you can put the ads in wherever you want too, which is really helpful. And Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. This has been super helpful with the success of my first episode, having it on all of these platforms for you guys to listen to. And Anchor does that for you, which makes it super easy. And you can make money from the podcast with no minimum listenership, which is perfect for people like me who are just starting a brand new podcast. So it's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. If you've been thinking about a podcast you want to start, this is me encouraging you to do it. All you got to do is download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm. That's ANCHOR.FM to get started.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Navigating Adulthood and IDD. Today I'm super excited to interview Danny Combs, the founder and CEO of TACT. And I actually got this quote off your website. I loved your mission statement. So if you don't mind, I'll read it real quick.
Sure.
The mission of TACT is to encourage and empower the full spectrum of individuals with autism through education and employment in the skilled trade. Our core values are essential to our identity: inclusion, integrity, respect, grace, discipline, and empowerment. And I really liked that mission statement. So I was like, ooh, I'm going to go ahead and do that as part of the intro so people can get an idea of TACT before we really start diving into it as well, too.
That sounds great. Well, thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on today, Danny. Would you mind giving us a short introduction?
Sure. Short introduction about myself, about TACT, about all of it, or
yeah, let's start with you.
Okay.
Then we'll get into TACT.
Well, we have similar backgrounds, both of us, in music. So my family background is in the trades. So I grew up as a tradesman, 4th generation. I was free labor my pretty much entire youth with my dad and grandfather and great-grandfather. And my family background originally was in aerospace. And then my dad was a general contractor and learned all of those kind of things and just kind of took it completely for granted. Naturally, when you're 4th generation, you decide to go get a music degree and run off to Nashville and play guitar for a living, and that's what I did, and it worked out pretty well. And fast forward a decade or so later, I have a beautiful baby boy named Dylan that's born, and it changes my life. And as he gets a little bit older, we notice some unique things about him that make him extra awesome, and come to discover that those things are called autism. And we're looking for ways of enhancing and empowering his strengths, because he, even before he could say dad or I love you or any kind of communication with me, he was able to visualize and conceptualize these amazing things and build these wonderful things. I don't know if it's his autism or the family background or a combination or whatnot, and just started looking for programs that could utilize that and kind of help him and support him in that, and couldn't find anything, and put together the idea of TACT and had the chance to meet Dr. Temple Brandon, who's since become a pretty good friend, and said, hey, I've got this idea for this nonprofit of, doing trades and technical skills with individuals with autism. And she's like, I love it. Stop what you're doing and go do it right now. So it's like, yes, ma'am. That we do it because Temple told us to.
Right.
So.
If Temple Grandin tells you to do something,
Stop what you're
okay.
doing and do it now, then you listen. So we'll be celebrating 5 years in April. So yeah, so TACT has been doing, rocking and rolling since then. So it's been pretty great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
In 5 years, congratulations.
Thank you.
That might be like right when this episode comes out too.
Awesome.
Depending on my schedule. So it could come out right in time to celebrate.
That's
5
awesome.
years of TACT.
That would be great.
Awesome.
Well, next month is Autism Acceptance Month. So.
Oh, true.
Yeah, that's perfect.
That is perfect.
Yeah.
Yep. So we can celebrate both. Awesome. What a cool story. I feel like it's very unique having that experience of a loved one with autism and wanting to support them and kind of changing career paths like pretty drastically too.
Very drastically. Yes.
Although you guys make guitars.
We do. So, that's a big part of my life. So I can't let go of that. So we teach, it's called Lutherie to make stringed instruments at least. So we teach kiddos how to make guitars and ukuleles and cajones and glockenspiels and a bunch of different fun stuff. So it's fun.
That's awesome. That's so cool. I know I've been able to tour the facility before, and that's what really caught my eye for sure. So I was like, oh, that's such a cool trade.
Well, thanks. Not a lot of people don't even know it's an industry, but it's right. Massive. Fender guitars had their best year to date last year during the pandemic. I guess more people than ever are learning how to play an instrument, so it's good. So
that's so exciting. Oh, cool. So what other kind of programs do you guys provide at TACT?
That's a great question. So we're kind of diversified in our programming. So we use trades and technical skills as kind of vessels for work ethic towards getting a job. That's kind of our end goal. So 90% of the autism community is un or underemployed. It's the highest under or unemployed group in the country, which is just insane to think about the fact that, CDC reports, I think it's 1 in 52 kiddos with autism or young adults with autism. Some states are higher. So it's a large part of our population. I think 90% of them end up unemployed is just wildly insane, I think. So we're using these skills to try to break that. We just don't find that acceptable in any stretch of the imagination. So we have a bunch of camps and workshops and one-on-one lessons that we do nights and weekends. And the idea for those individuals coming to that starts as young as 5. And obviously we're not putting a 5-year-old on a welding torch or under an engine, but we have a bunch of different trades, everything from textiles to instrument making to flying drones to audio engineering, a bunch of different things. And then moving that experience to get them excited and exposed to the trades. And then when they get to the age that they are in the transition age, then we have what we call our career tracks program. And it acts as just that, a transition program for taking individuals that are of working age and transitioning them from a traditional high school type program into the actual workforce. And that one's been very successful. We have an over 80% job placement rate. We're pretty much a 180 from every other program in the state. So it's exciting.
That is exciting. Congratulations. Yeah.
Well, thanks.
That's a great rate, and just exciting that that's an opportunity for individuals with autism so that, if they want to work, they can learn these trades and find that fulfillment, that work fulfillment.
Yeah. And not all of them end up being auto mechanics and welders, but they learn, I think, a work ethic here that allows them to, whatever path they choose to go in, that they've learned work skills that enable them to be successful within that job. And we work with a variety of different partners, and we teach the full spectrum of individuals with the autism spectrum here. So we have some that are now changing airbags at Audi, or working in a warehouse at Advanced Auto Parts, or wiring the new Amazon.com building, or working on Highway 70 or with CDOT, or it's everywhere. This summer we have programs set up with solar panel installations, and it's kind of all over. In the STEM field, we have individuals working at accounting firms, and just wild. So it's cool.
That is cool. So when an individual comes into the transition program, do you guys really work to find what they're interested in and
We do, and we want to see what their passion is and what their strengths are. We're a strengths-based program traditionally. A lot of autism programs are deficit-based programs where they tend to look at what needs to be fixed, where we look at it as, okay, what is this person's strength? What do they excel at? How can we build upon that so that they are successful in their career, in their life? Not saying that we are oblivious to those things that need to be perhaps strengthened, but we're not focusing on those, quote, quote, deficits. We're focusing on the strengths, and then kind of naturally, when you empower somebody based upon their strengths, then a lot of times those things that, traditional autism programs would look at as deficits are naturally kind of supported. That being said, because of that, we found so many success stories with that. Right now, there's a 3-year longitudinal study that Children's Hospital is doing on us, because our kind of, and it's very subtle, the way that we're looking at things based upon those strengths is very counter to the way a lot of our culture currently looks at the world and what we need to do. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Because I could see programs like focusing on like, okay, you need to know like these social skills to do jobs, but it's cool that you guys kind of flip it. I'm like, what are you like? What is your strength? What can we build upon that?
Yeah.
And it's exciting to hear too. That's naturally like some of the things that might have needed to be worked on just kind of naturally get worked on when we can focus on that strength and that passion and those interests.
Yeah, thanks. It's kind of old fashioned. I mean, I look at like, there would be no TACT without my family background. And I mean, you look at 100 years ago education, they found what were you good at? And that's where you went, right? And then you get into the nerdy education, history of stuff, of industrial evolution, and people getting shoved into like little lines of where they're going to go, and people get misplaced and, not really supported the way they need to. So we're kind of looking at it holistically and to be a little old fashioned, which maybe sometimes looking at things old fashioned is progressive. And
Yeah.
You never know. So we're all reusing, glass bottles now for, all of our food, which my grandparents did, but my parents didn't. So you never know, right? So
yeah, that's a good point. Kind of like almost learning from history. I feel like that phrase can be used a lot to be like, don't repeat the past.
Yeah.
But almost looking at like, oh, but what was good in history too?
Yeah.
What can we build upon that? Don't reinvent the wheel.
Right.
All right, we've touched on this a little bit, but would you mind describing the importance and need for job training for individuals with autism? You threw out that very jarring statistic that 90% are unemployed. So what is kind of the importance of providing these trade skills for individuals?
A great question. So I think, TACT, we do things a little bit different in the sense that we kind of front load the training as opposed to put that in the bottom end. And what I mean by that is traditionally lots of bridge programs or transition programs that currently exist, the way that they work is, it's very focused on traditional education, and then we include soft skills, right? So they're introducing the idea of eye contact, of, brushing your teeth, hygiene, different soft skill type things, communication pieces that are very important. They are. However, they miss the training for any kind of job, right? And what they do is they go out and they set up field trips, which can be great, and they try to their credit, expose kids. Okay, what seems interesting to you? But what happens is, and I'm not trying to put them down. They're wonderful and they have their own place. They go and they expose kids on this field trip to, okay, I want to be, let's say, a musician, right? So you and I both being musically inclined. Okay, I want to be a musician. So then they set up a quote unquote internship or a placement for somebody as a musician. But you and I both know that if you went to a concert and saw somebody that had no musical background put on stage and then playing with a band, they probably wouldn't be very successful. The audience wouldn't be happy, the band wouldn't be happy, and then the person that was placed in that position also wouldn't be happy. Nobody wins from that. And then so more bands don't hire more clients. That person ends up unhappy and wondering why they're so unhappy, and just everybody loses. So what we do is we go to employers, we say, okay, what are the things you're looking for that you need? And we train them on the front end for that, right? So I'm assuming you went to music school. I went to music school. When you're in a conservatory, like you learn all these things, right? And then when you go into it, the idea is you're that much more successful. So we're training them here for that job. And then as they go into it, what naturally happens with that holistic approach is, within the trades at least, there's no way to build a structure without learning communication skills or math skills or kinesthetic skills. All of those things come naturally and holistically, but our current models are completely segregated, right? We've taken out math from language, from physical education, and we've moved them into separate entities at separate times and separate places. Even with an autism, we end up separating everything, right, into certain task analyses. So it's like, okay, I need him to, or she to learn X, Y, and Z before they can learn, D, E, and F. They break it down that way. But a lot of times then that trying to get it to come back together is lost on a lot of clients. So when it's taught in a way that's authentic to the actual workplace, then people are happy that way. They retain it. So what we find is if we're working with an employer, we're training an individual on our end for that job and then place them into that position, they're hitting the ground already running. So then the employer sees that that person is successful, is on task, is engaged, has a high retention rate, and it works. And then the employer comes to us and says, can I have more, right? So, I mean, one of our success stories is there's a credit card company we work with. They're one of only 4 in the nation, and they are, secure place because they're working with people's credit, right? So I mean, they have to be. And they're building credit cards, and they came to us, hired one, and within like a month of hiring one, they came back to us and said, literally, can I have 30 more? Because our students were that engaged and that, productive. And that's what people want, right? And so that's what businesses look at, because then they make more money, because then they have less HR costs. They have a staff that's more productive, more engaged, more on task, and less turnover. It's a win-win for everybody involved. Likewise, with those companies, it creates all of a sudden room for advancement, which is traditionally not existed within our community, right? What happens a lot of times when an individual with autism is placed in a job, they're placed in something that they might be fulfilled at working at like a Kroger or, folding napkins, or that might be what they want. And if that is awesome, a lot of our clients are looking for more. And so, or something different, I should say. So we like to look and provide an opportunity that leads towards a career, not just a job.
That's awesome. Yeah.
That makes sense. The way I
Yeah,
market it. So, yeah.
I feel like that tied up at the end really nicely too, of like looking for a career and not just like a job.
Yeah, there's a difference.
Like, you could place anybody at
right.
Kroger.
Yeah.
And like you said, that could be fulfilling.
Right.
But like you could, you can just put anybody there and be like, okay, work.
Yeah.
Versus like building that career through the trades, through their interests and their passions.
Yeah.
Very cool. And then it sounds like you've had a lot of success in the community where they're like, oh, more workers and.
Well, we have. It's been neat too. I mean, the cool thing about the trades is, they've already embraced language differences, right? And the kind of the diversity of language within our society in the trades. So the neat thing is everything is become visually based. I mean, it's almost set up perfectly for our students in the sense when you go to an electrical company and they're hiring their kids, it's not written instructions. I mean, you look at IKEA, right? There's no language on that. It's just pictures, and anybody from any background, they've already embraced it, right? And so the trades are the same way, that they're embracing this visual structure to bypass any language diversity, that you can just know what to do. And that works perfectly. I mean, not all the time, but by and large, it works. It's a pretty darn good starting spot for our students in that getting placed in a job that's successful. So the employer is happy because they don't have to invest in creating something yet different for our clients, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
The ground running.
Yeah, definitely. And you might have touched on this, but do you do any kind of training for the employer side of it, or is it all kind of on the student side?
No, absolutely. So we go out, we do a training on autism, supports of autism, communication. We have job coaches that go out with them as well, that kind of act like a liaison between the two. So all of those different things, absolutely. It's part of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which they like, because I think, everybody knows somebody with autism. Everybody does. So there's a lot of stereotypes, a lot of misinformation that has been unsuccessful in communicating that with our community. So, in the community at large. So it's nice to kind of get it out there.
Yeah, definitely. And then it doesn't put the pressure all on the autistic person to perform.
Right. Yeah.
It's like the community should adjust too.
No, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, and again, that's the strength-based approach, right? We're acknowledging what this individual is great for and building upon that. We're not looking to change anything about them and say, okay, to work at this place, you need to adapt or adjust, or why? Why would they need to do? That's not who they are. We're going to recognize them for their amazing ability, and that is an asset to the company. Who they are is the asset. So, I mean, one of the things that we do at TACT is, even though we're a 501c3 nonprofit that is technically a charity, and we do education training. So, I mean, we're not like a school, we're a nonprofit. We don't ever go to an employer and say, hey, by working with this nonprofit / charity, that's a great thing to do. It looks good. That's not our pitch at all. This is an amazing individual. Look at their on-task time, look at their productivity, look at their portfolio, look at how much better your workplace is going to be because of their talent. That's the pitch. I mean, that's what employers want. Most of the employers that work with us end up a lot of times donating back to us, and they don't even want tax receipts. They just want, we give them to them, obviously, because that's what you do with nonprofit, but they're looking because they recognize it's the right thing to do as well, and it's made their workplace better, and then they support it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah, and this is another thing I saw on your website and kind of ties like right into this discussion right now. But would you mind speaking on neurodiversity and how TACT promotes neurodiversity?
Yeah, I mean, we're also advocates. You know, I mean, that's a big part, right? I mean, and I think when you look at it and kind of just everything we just talked about, in the sense that that is all neurodiversity, right? When you're embracing that different mindset. I mean, we have a construction company we work with. They came out, they're $1 billion+ company. They hire a lot of people. Their starting wage is like $18 an hour for like sweeping, which our kids aren't doing. So the kids get paid really well. But they came out and like saw like our welding stations, for example, the way the kids they designed, like they realized, you know what, laying my welding torch on a metal bench isn't the best thing to do. So our kids came up with just naturally little holders, which they made themselves, that you don't buy in stores, and put them on the benches. And then the construction company comes out and says, where did you get those? That is so cool. And it's like, oh, our kids didn't like laying their welding torch on the bench. So they designed it, built it, and put it together. And they're like, we don't have guys that know how to do that. And they get it, right? They see that this way of thinking is outside the box and it's valuable. And that's what they want. And I think that is what neurodiversity is at its heart. It's looking at this amazing way of thinking that's been traditionally kind of pushed to the side and disenfranchised, and we're kind of empowering it instead.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I love that example too. It's such a creative problem solving that they just did because they were like, yeah, we're going to fix this. And
right. I mean, and that's our kids. I mean, like, you know, they look at a problem and they're like, that doesn't make any sense. It needs to be X, Y, and Z. And then they go and do it. And you're like, oh, yeah, I completely agree. That makes total sense. Why would I do it the other way? That doesn't make it. But I think, you know, the cool thing about our kids is they question, right? They say it shouldn't be this way. I think it should be, you know, another way. And they do it. We want them to do it. So
yeah, and then by celebrating those different ways of thinking, you get different solutions to problems that people traditionally hadn't thought of.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. So kind of a thought experiment, maybe. TACT is awesome, you know, and you guys are doing great things in the community. But, you know, that's not what every program is like everywhere. And so do you have any advice for employers, for job trainers, to make sure that they could develop programs, that they can develop positions that also celebrate neurodiversity?
Yeah, I think most companies already have it. I think the biggest thing that they don't have is a way of tapping into it and acknowledging it. So I would encourage employers to themselves adapt into the way that they actually recruit our, you know, individuals. There's still a society that uses resumes. And, you know, I was talking to somebody the other day, another company that's out of Phoenix or Arizona, that's going to be hiring our kids to do the solar panels, which I mentioned. And the whole idea that, you know, we have to still write down resumes and based upon how our eye contact is in a job interview is very old-fashioned and not a good way, in the sense that, you know, if our kids can restore classic cars, which they do, and they do exceedingly well, and if they're putting on a paper resume and they put 5 sentences like, I did engine, I did brakes, I did some suspension, we're like, what does that really mean? But if you walk through and have a portfolio showcasing, okay, this suspension I completely disassembled, reassembled, painted, re-geared, I mean, all of these different things, like, that's real. How do you put that in a sentence on a resume in bullet point form in a Microsoft Office template? Like, that doesn't articulate the strengths of our students. So I think just employers, I think they're getting it. I think they're realizing it, especially in this labor shortage that we have right now, where companies can't find, you know, qualified workers. I mean, especially in the trades, they have to start opening it up the way that they're doing it as well, and start recognizing that there is talent out there and talent wanting to be found. But a lot of times, I mean, you know, working in the arts, artists look at the world different. And how do they express that? The employers need to be open to that as well. So
I love that. Yeah. Just kind of open to maybe not doing your interview like the same way for every single person, and judging it on like those arbitrary things like
agreed.
Eye contact. Oh,
I'm terrible at
handshake. The handshake.
Yeah, exactly.
How much? Isn't that crazy in school? I feel like there was a long. I think I went to a career center.
Right.
At university, and they spent a very long time like talking about the handshake and like it should be firm, and it's like but why should that matter when right if you can like do this beautiful thing with a car, like who cares if you have a firm handshake?
Well, I mean, you know, we always say too, like at the end of the day, if your toilet's broken, you need your toilet fixed. Do you want the person that comes out and shakes your hand really well and makes great eye contact but can't fix your toilet? Or the person that maybe not shake your hand the way that you want your hand to be shaken, but like fixes your toilet and does it well? Like you need it fixed. That's what you need. So it's kind of just reprioritizing what's important.
Right, exactly. Awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's great advice for the listeners to think about. And I love how you also acknowledge that employers are already like trying to work towards hiring
They are,
more neurodiverse populations, and just acknowledging and being aware of where they can kind of improve that process.
Right.
Yeah. So what's TACT up to now? And I mean, we're like coming up on a year in a global pandemic. What has that been like?
We've been really fortunate. So, I mean, we ended up doing that whole kit program where we would manufacture kits and have virtual instructions for people to keep doing things that way. We have VR now as well. So our students are using virtual reality, the kits, and then we've adapted to private lessons versus summer camps. But we've been still doing in-person stuff almost the whole time. I mean, the neat thing about our program from the get-go is despite the fact we have over 700 kids in our program, we never have more than 6 kids per class. So, I mean, we have had to embrace a lot of cleaning products and you know, tarps and all kinds of different stuff and take down our fancy swings or maybe some of the more therapeutic things that we have set up. But TACT has still been getting kids jobs and still fulfilling our mission. So it's been kind of neat to see that, you know, the trades, they're valuable, they're relevant, and we've been going. So we actually ironically grew and hired more people, have our biggest staff to date. Been kind of nice. Knock on wood.
Nice. Yeah, that's very exciting, and I'm glad to hear that you guys have been doing very well in the pandemic. I love that you guys have that smaller class size. Is that for just making sure like individual attention is provided?
Yeah. So I think, you know, from the get-go, we wanted to set it up as a, you know, student dream and a teacher's dream, right? I have a master's in education, and I, you know, have experience, you know, working in different educational environments, and a lot of the ways, again, even in education that they do things just didn't seem very wise, you know. When I taught music inner city in Nashville, and we did that, you know, I had 8 preps, 35 kids per class, and you would go from like, you know, orchestra to general music to strings to piano to music theory to music history, and it's not set up for success. Let's just say.
Yeah.
So we looked at that, and it's difficult for anybody, I don't care where you're at in life, to be in a classroom setup like that and be successful. So we started looking at it and saying, I mean, and we've done this since our very beginning, never more than 6 kids. We always have at least 2 professionals in the classroom, sometimes 3. So we found like the 2-to-1, 3-to-1 ratio works very well. And then we set up the classroom where the kids are successful as well. We find that, you know, if we set it up from the get-go, I want to say correctly, but with a greater outcome and greater chance of success, then the kids are more successful, right? I mean, I can't imagine, you know, there are, you know, the idea of trade schools is not original. There's other trade schools in town. But, you know, for example, one of them, I know for a fact their auto program has 60 kids per class with 1 teacher. That terrifies me to like think of just personally, like as a individual and educator, like being with 60 kids. How is that even possible? I mean, even if you had 6 hours and, you know, can somehow keep them engaged that long, like you have minutes with right. Nobody is getting the formal education they need. And no wonder that employers then go to those programs to hire, and those people get hired, and the employer's like, they don't know anything. And it's like, well, how could you expect them to know anything in an environment like that? Nobody learns from that. So we're trying to set it up where there's the most contact time, the most individualized and differentiated time for every client that capitalizes and maximizes their experience here so that they're more successful.
Yeah, that makes like complete sense. I thought that number made me like sweat.
Oh, right. Well, I know there's
I'll do early childhood and I've had up to 15 kids in a class, and that makes me very stressed when I have 15 littles. Can you imagine if I had 60?
No, there's a shop class on the west side of town in Jefferson County. They have like 35 kids, and it's like, I'm sorry, like 35 kids around a table saw, that's a bad day. That is a bad day waiting to happen. Like, why would you even consider that? But they do, and I get it, you know, budget-wise and all kinds of things, but at some point you have to look at it, I think, beyond the numbers and look at like what's the right thing to do for the success of that person. Because, either they're going to pay for it on the front end or the back end. So might as well set it up to be successful.
Set it up to be successful. Yeah, 100%. Awesome. Circling back a little bit, I would love to hear more about the VR stuff that you guys have provided.
Yeah. So during the pandemic, we bought a couple of different VRs. Naturally, TACT fashion, we had the students build the computers that work for them because they need to know that things will show up. And we use them for welding and auto mechanics. And the idea is that we can teach so much, at least the vocabulary, the tools that are used, some of the safety stuff as well. And then we can actually quantify and qualify what the students are doing during that process. We're excited to be partnering with a company called R3 that does all the safety trainings for like NATO and the Navy that are going to be embracing that as well. I mean, there's some amazing technology out there right now that, while expensive, can produce some pretty cool results and augment our students' education in a pretty amazing way if utilized, in my opinion, sparingly and appropriately, right? I don't want it to be all auto mechanics online and VR. Like, that's not the same. But like, hey kids, we have to quarantine. Let's keep going with some VR for a week, learn these different lessons. You can still at least dissect an engine, see how it comes back together. I mean, there's 3D technologies now that are remarkable for that. And it's kind of nice, again, to kind of put that on top of what they're getting with the hands-on experience, and it's working. So it's expensive, but it works. So yeah.
That is so cool. And I feel like everyone's had to lean a little more into technology because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
But I love just like that extra level of like, okay, we're quarantining, we're gonna do it this way, we're gonna lean into this and like balance it with the real life work, I suppose.
Yeah, well, we have to find a way of making it creative and engaging, right? Nobody likes sitting and being lectured. Nobody likes that. I mean, every educational study you could read in the world ever written will tell you that is like the worst thing that we can do for kids. Yet we still do it. I mean, it makes no sense. So we want to find ways of engaging the kids and kind of still, keep those creative juices flowing so they're successful.
Yeah, oh, that's awesome. Sweet. Well, we're kind of wrapping up a little bit. Is there anything else you'd like to share or discuss today?
No, I just want to thank you for your time and for sharing our story. And I hope people can visit our website, which is buildwithtact.org, and learn more, and our social media, and see the kids in action. I mean, they're doing some amazing things. So we like to highlight them, showcase their abilities.
Awesome. I'll definitely make sure that's in the show notes so people can get to find TACT and get to it as quickly and look into all the cool things that you guys are doing.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on today, Danny.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I hope you enjoyed that interview with Danny. He has such an infectious energy and attitude and is very clearly passionate about the mission that he has with TACT and the amazing things that they're doing. I really want to just emphasize a few points from our interview, including kind of this idea that's been reoccurring on the podcast of having a strength-based model and really focusing on the strengths of adults with disabilities and to allow them to have self-empowerment through different training, through different programs, with that focus of how can we focus on their strengths, build on their strengths, and kind of nurture their strengths and lead to this self-empowerment so that they can have self-actualization, have high self-esteem, and have fulfilling lives and careers if desired. And I think TACT also doesn't just nurture strengths. Throughout the interview, it was clear they nurture relationships within the community, with the clients that they're working with the students they're working with, and they also nurture the careers of all the participants at TACT, and kind of not just like, oh, we're going to place them in a job, but really form around their interests, build up their skills, and really nurture a career that they want, which is crucial, as discussed in this episode and in previous episodes, that the unemployment rate of autistic individuals is 90%, which is super high and super unfortunate for those that want to be working or want to be in the workforce, but have to deal with the inaccessibility of a lot of job situations. So I feel like TACT is just doing a really great job at individualizing their program to support these individuals, these autistic individuals, with what they choose as a career, with what they're interested in, with what what they find fulfilling, and really building around that, and even down to their classroom size. I feel like just reflects the mission that TACT has and is doing in the community. And I love Danny's advice to employers that they're already working hard to be more inclusive, but to maybe be a little more open in the job hiring process and how you're hiring, and to reprioritize what's important were the words that I wanted to pull out from the episode. Reprioritize what's important. Is it eye contact? Is it a handshake? Or is it the actual job that the autistic individual can do and bring, and an actual task, and not kind of the societal things that we build around job interviews? So I thought that was awesome advice, to just be open in the job hiring process, because you never know what an individual will bring to the table. You never know their strengths, especially if you're not looking for the strengths. So yeah, just a great interview with Danny. I'm so glad he came on, and I loved hearing more about what's going on at TACT. Their website and social media will be in the show notes, as well as more information on Autism Acceptance Month, as it is Autism Acceptance Month right now. Hooray! April. So I'll link some more information on how to celebrate autism acceptance below in the show notes. And then consider maybe for Autism Acceptance donating to TACT. They're a nonprofit, and donating to them so that they continue to build and develop and reach more autistic individuals with their programs. So I'll put a link to that as well in the show notes, and that could be one of many ways to celebrate autism acceptance this month. So consider that and maybe check it out, but definitely check out their website. Next, I'm going to go over our spring music therapy session plan for adults with IDD. So the outline this month is a hello song, Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles, Movement, Rockin' Robin by Bobby Day, instrument playing, Spring by Eliza Cook, which is a public domain poem, and you could use poetry to create a soundscape. Then there's relaxation, When It's Springtime in the Rockies by Gene Autry. And for goodbye, I put So Long, Farewell from The Sound of Music as a new idea for the goodbye song. And by new, I mean not nah nah hey kiss goodbye, which is like on every other plan. I use that one a lot in groups, but I thought this could be an interesting song to do as well at the end of a group. And if you're interested in more information on how I would use these, or how I've used these different intervention activity ideas, consider becoming a patron on patreon.com/navigating adulthood and IDD. It's $5 a month, subscription based, and I create these monthly session plans, as you know. And in the Patreon feed, you get a breakdown of the session plan where I write out more specifics on implementation, link to more resources, add visuals or lead sheets depending on the plan, and then I do a video breakdown of the plan that's accessible to patrons as well on patreon.com. And then also, Navigating Adulthood and IDD is celebrating its 1-year birthday this month, and to celebrate, up until April 27th, you can become a patron. Well, you can always become a patron of the podcast, but if you join before April 27th, you get access to a free mini course. It's a 6-video series that's an hour long, and it's technology and music therapy for adults with IDD. And I go over all kinds of stuff in the course, including digital audio workstations, filming videos, editing audio, and then different resources for telehealth, or if you're in person on an iPad or a tablet or a smartboard, different resources and how you can use them clinically as well. So if that sounds interesting to you, for $5 you can come and check it out for free once you are a patron, and you could also have access to the session plans and all the previous breakdowns. There should be over 12, and you'll also have access to our monthly Zoom meeting. It will be the last week of April, and there is an office hour for the course the 28th at 5:30 p.m. Mountain Time, which is 7:30 p.m. Eastern. If you join before the 27th, you can join us on that office hour, and we can discuss more on technology as well too. So like I said, it's $5 a month, and feel free to if you just want to check it out in April, you can always end your subscription on Patreon. It's through Patreon, you could end it. Just know they charge on the 1st of the month, so you'd want to do that before May 1st or they'll charge again automatically. But it's totally okay to just come and check it out to see if it's a good fit, see if the community groups are a good fit, if they're the resources you're looking for. So feel free to do that as well too if you just want to kind of come and check out what the community is about. We also have a Facebook group where you can ask more questions and connect more as well too. So all that's for $5 a month, and I like to call my patrons navigators, and it supports the podcast as well as helps continue to build this community where we can provide the best services possible for our clients, for the adults that we work with. So that is my launch announcement. Thanks for listening, and thanks for listening to this episode. I hope you have some good takeaways from it and celebrate Autism Acceptance this month. To also celebrate, there's actually going to be another episode, so look for that near the end of April. I usually post once a month, so we got 2 this month to continue to celebrate. And other ways to support the podcast include listening, downloading, rating us on iTunes, and sharing us with somebody you think would enjoy it as well. Thank you again for listening. I will see you next time. This podcast is by Rhythmic Roots Music Services, LLC, with content and music by Bonnie Haupt. Transcriptions are made by my favorite little sister, Emma Haupt. Thanks for listening.